The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Any% is an interesting speedrun. In fact, it's always been, given that the game gives you the ability to freely travel to the final boss after only completing the tutorial area. Then when you combine it with its crazy physics engine and a dedicated community, you get insane results. For this video, I will be going over each trick I use along with how and why they work, but I'm not going to explain the specific setups or go too in depth to the tricks. If you would like to see more thorough explanations, look at the description and I will provide links to all the resources I used. My name is EazySpeezy, and this is what happened when I tried speedrunning Breath of the Wild Any% for 1 week. Now, the first day of playing Breath of the Wild Any% was completely just learning the route. I only had about 2 hours to spare and a lot of insane tricks to learn, so that's to be expected. Now for my learning, I mostly use the Any% speedrunning tutorial from Limcube and the additional help of my Twitch chat, links to all of them in the description. So going off the tutorial, I sought to learn the basic movements and glitches in Breath of the Wild first, so we're going to start off with those. First we have whistle sprinting. Breath of the Wild uses a stamina system that makes the acts of running, climbing, and swimming make your stamina go down. If you run out of stamina, Link walks slowly until it refills. To combat this, whistle sprinting is very useful. Here you hold the whistle button and tap the sprint button over and over. The result is you can regain stamina while still running. The movement isn't quite as fast as regular sprinting though, so the general strategy is to switch between regular sprinting when you have stamina and whistle sprinting when you're low. Next we have throw sprinting. The concept is very similar to whistle sprinting, where you run a little slower than regular sprinting but retain stamina. But with this technique, you don't make as much noise. Therefore it's used in sections where we don't want to alert enemies. To perform it, you simply have to repeatedly press both the sprint and throw weapon buttons. Third, the speedrun commonly uses shield surfing. To trigger this, you must target with ZL, jump with X, and press A. The action is used both in general movement to be a little faster and more complicated tricks, which I'll explain in a bit. Fourth, I learned how to fall damage cancel, or FDC for short. FDCs you can use to fall from a high place without taking any fall damage. To perform this, you hold the throw weapon button, wait until you're close enough to the ground, release the throw weapon button, and then before Link releases his weapon, quickly equip or unequip a bow, sword, or shield. The result is you shouldn't take any fall damage. The next concept you need to understand when speedrunning Breath of the Wild is shield clipping and skew. To put it very simply, when you shield surf on specific slopes, the game will save the position of your tilt to when you unequip your shield while shield surfing. This tilt is called skew. If you combine this with Link being in a specific position on shrines, it lets him clip through walls. Your skew will go away if you complete another shield surf without unequipping the shields before touching the ground, bonking, or resetting your game. As the Any% speedrun skips getting the initial tower that opens the shrines on the Great Plateau, this technique is required to enter every shrine. Each shrine has a different setup, but they all follow the same basic concept. Sixth, we have the concept of bullet time bounces, or BTBs. The basic concept of a BTB is you shield surf on top of an enemy. However, just before you hit the enemy, you draw your bow to trigger the game's slow motion effect, bullet time. Then, you land on the enemy while still in bullet time, and right after that, cancel your arrow shot. You will then get sent very far up into the air, and then you can land by using the glider if you have it, or dropping by equipping or unequipping a weapon, or pressing B to cancel your shield surf, and then performing a fall damage cancel. Like shield clipping, there are different setups you need to use to get the right angles for each BTB, but they all follow the same general concept. Finally, the last big technique I used in the runs are wind bombs, also known as bomb impact launches or boomy zoomies for any Small Ant 1 fans out there. I did not actually begin learning how to do a wind bomb until day 2, but I feel like it's still going to be useful to explain it now, as it's used several times throughout the run. To perform this trick, you jump forward while holding ZL, drop a bomb, and then draw your bow to enter bullet time. After this, you switch to your other bomb and drop that one. Finally, you go back to the first bomb you dropped and blow it up. The result is the second bomb to fly into Link, launching him forward. If Link has the glider, he's able to eventually draw it out and you can fly very far with it. Now those are the basic glitches and techniques that we're going to be using throughout the run. There are many more tricks that are used, but they're only implemented once. Therefore I'm going to explain those tricks when we actually get to them. Also, obviously this is a fairly bare bones explanation of the tricks, therefore if you want to learn more specifics about any of the tricks I use, I recommend looking in the description where I'm going to provide all the resources that I used to learn with. Now that I understood the basic tricks used in the run, I could finally start learning the route. The speedrun starts as soon as you gain control of Link for the first time. You must then run over to the pedestal to get your Sheikah Slate, and the glitches start immediately after that. You must then activate the scope feature of your Sheikah Slate so its quick cutscene can be played. Then we jump on top of this slant and walk against this wall. For the setup I learned, you then line your camera up so it's around these 2 points, and point your character towards this point. You then basically spam the R3 button until you open the Sheikah Slate and clip through the floor. We can then climb up a wall and get back in bounds. This both lets us skip the beginning cutscene and never activate the day-night cycle, so it always remains day. Next we start running to the Bokoblin camp where we can pick up a potlet to use as a shield along with safety food in case we need it. We move as fast as possible to get an axe, 5 arrows, and a bow before running to the first shrine. This is the first area where we can use shield clipping. To clip into the first shrine, we can shield surf to get skew here, clip into this area, and finally crouch, uncrouch, and enter the shrine. Understanding this trick was really difficult for me and took a lot of time, but thankfully, with the help of my chat, I was finally able to understand this trick within an hour. The shrine itself is fairly simple and has obvious movement, so I'm not going to explain that, but I did decide to pick up a second non-essential shield that is recommended for when you start running the game. There is also a trick you can do to skip hitting this boulder, which saves 4 seconds, but it's fairly precise, so I decided not to do it for now. After the first shrine, we finished talking to an old man before using our newly acquired stasis rune. With stasis, we can freeze this boulder, hit it 3 times with our axe and 1 time at an upwards angle with an arrow, and then climb on top of it. This lets us make it to the top of the cliff quickly. Then we run over to this other cliff and finally do our first BTB. Or at least that's what I would have said, except I tried for a while and couldn't get it, so I decided to end my stream there and practice a little offline later. And that concludes day 1 of the challenge. Now day 2 started with me being very confident. I practiced the first BTB for about an hour and got it fairly consistent, and I even had a new layout. So I just had to show off by getting the BTB first try. At least second try. Okay, well I got it third try at least. After that was the task of getting into another shrine with some more shield clipping. The setup was a little more complicated than the last one, as I had to get my skew here, align Link's position up here by jumping on the wall, and then clipping into the shrine. Then, because the ground was too low, I had to learn how to perform another clip to be able to actually enter the shrine. Again, the shrine itself was fairly straightforward. There is a trick you can do where you create an ice block and then surf and jump off of it, but it's fairly precise and only saves about 7 seconds, so I decided to leave it out for now. Immediately after leaving the shrine, I learned how to perform my next BTB on this collection of goblins. This BTB is different because there are several different places that it can send you and it can still work. The most efficient position is right next to the next shrine, and it's so fast that the shrine doesn't completely load, so you don't even have to shield clip. However, most of the time I got an angle where I got put in the forest, so it required a little extra running. But at the very least it does let you pick up some extra arrows. After practicing this trick to where I was satisfied, I moved on to the shield clip. Again, there was another interesting setup that resulted in needing 2 shield clips in all, and I still consider this one of the hardest shield clips in the run. However, it is definitely possible, and after a few tries I was satisfied enough to move on. Like usual, the shrine was simple, but at least you got to perform a cool shield jump at the end to avoid having to make a bridge. Now we get to do another BTB, but before that we launch off this metal slab using stasis to cross the river. Then we run up to the bokoblin camp before jumping off one of them to get to the final shrine of the run. This BTB was different because it didn't have a specific setup where you can take your time and be precise. You have to manipulate the bokoblins and then jump when one of them gets in the right place, hoping to not get hit by a random barrel. We get in the 4th shrine with another 2 clips and then we can finally get bombs. Now here's the first point in the run where I finally get to use wind bombs. Since we don't have a paraglider, we first enable the ragdoll ability for Link by canceling a shield surf in the air. Then we can finish out the shrine once we get launched over to the end. This took a while for me to learn as it was my first time trying to perform a wind bomb, and I had to learn all the muscle memory. I got fairly comfortable with it before moving on, but I wouldn't be truly comfortable until a couple of days later. After finishing the shrine, we can finally finish the Great Plateau, but not before collecting this beetle for an attack up potion later and performing one last trick. In this trick, we chop down a tree and stasis it before it falls. Then we hit it with our axe, turning our back to the tree so we can get double hits instead of single hits and fill up the bar faster, until it's at max launch distance. Then we shoot an arrow in the direction of our destination and jump on the tree, re-grabbing our arrow. This took me a ton of time to learn and get comfortable with, but it was mostly a matter of muscle memory. That was almost big money. That was almost big money, boys. It wasn't until the 3rd day where I could do it fairly consistently, but I decided I would practice more offline. We finally talked to the king and get our paraglider, completing the Great Plateau segment. Now it's time to complete my first Great Plateau any percent run. I changed my system language to French as it's the fastest language to run on and got ready. The tutorial suggests that before you learn the entire run, you be able to consistently get 20-minute Great Plateau any percent runs so you become used to the run and have a good early game. I didn't exactly follow this rule for reasons I'll explain later, but for now it was time to play. In my first run, it was far from perfect. As I hadn't done the first shield clip since the day before, I forgot its setup. I had to watch the video again to remember, and it was a pretty stupid time loss. I also messed up the rock launch once, but hey, at least I got my first try BTB. However, I failed the clip to get into the next shrine a few times, so more time loss accumulated. I somehow was able to get the second BTB first try though, even if it wasn't the best angle, and we were going fairly fast. However though, in similar fashion with the other shrines, I failed my next shield clip for a while, but at least I finally got it. I exited the shrine preparing myself for the next BTB, only to not get there. Yeah, I started moving the box after that. Then my BTB didn't work, and as it only saves about 40 seconds, I ran the rest of the way over to the shrine. My next shield clip though actually went surprisingly well, but then I failed the wind bomb and decided to run. Finally, we ended my first run with me failing the tree launch, so I had to run again. But hey, I still ended up with a sub 34-minute time, and I was pretty happy with it for a first run. There were a lot of clear and easy time saves I knew I had, so I was excited to go and do my next run, and that's kind of just what I did. My next runs of the day resulted in fair improvement with each one. I got more comfortable with the run and better at the tricks, so I've seen some really good improvement. This resulted in me getting just a barely over 30-minute time, a sub 28-minute time, and then 2 failed runs that kinda made me tilt, so I reset. At that point, it was obvious that I was tired and definitely needed a break from the game, so I decided to end off my stream there with my Great Plateau any percent run being a 27.50. Not too bad for day 2 of the challenge. Later in the day, off stream, I practiced the tricks more and even started practicing the next BTB that we used to fly off to Hyrule Castle, but I'll have more on that when we get to day 3. Oh hey look, we already got to day 3. I started out day 3 with a few more Great Plateau any percent runs. In these runs, I saw some more healthy improvement with a sub 27-minute run, a run I kinda choked but at least got a few gold splits in, and a just barely sub 24-minute run. Let's go! Yeah, I was pretty happy. Now at this point, it was already day 3 and I still had a good amount of tricks I needed to learn. I knew it was recommended that you wait until you're better at this run, but for this challenge I thought it would be better for me to start learning the rest of the run sooner rather than later. That's why at this point I decided to start learning the speedrun section for Hyrule Castle. Now this starts with a very precise BTB. You basically do this short setup where you shoot an arrow and position yourself correctly before shield jumping down to the enemy. You have to start bullet time a few frames before hitting the bokoblin, otherwise you will not have enough stamina or enough momentum to make it to Hyrule Castle. But if you don't quite make it to the place you need to go, you can also use this slab to get there. I later learned that this backup strat is now obsolete with wind bombs, so oops. I spent a while practicing both the BTB and this backup strat so I'd have as much of a chance of succeeding my future runs as possible. Now we open these 2 boxes to get arrows along with a mighty banana. We need this mighty banana to make an attack up recipe that we use to defeat Ganon, so we save just in case we have to reload that save. Now here's where I spend a while learning an outdated part of the run. While Limcube's tutorial is very helpful, it was made before the invention of wind bombs, so there are strats that are both faster and easier than the ones in his tutorial. Thankfully someone in my chat pointed this out and I began learning the correct route. For this route, first we wind bomb up to this room in Hyrule Castle. From here we can get the bow on the chandelier and another mighty banana for the attack up recipe. Then we run through Hyrule Castle getting a sword and dropping a bomb just for a little later, killing an enemy and taking his sword, a bow, and the guts he drops for our attack up recipe, and destroying these boxes for a bunch of extra arrows before heading back. Then we sneak attack the Lizalfos to instantly kill him and take his sword and shield. We can then run back to where we started, grab this mushroom, throw a bomb to distract these enemies, sneak attack and kill this enemy, start a fire under the cooking pot, and cook our attack up potion. Then we take the weapon from the enemy we killed before leaving. I kinda forgot to do that last part though, so oops. But hey, I didn't notice that yet, but you'll see when I do. After that sequence of events, we wind bomb up to the Ganon fight. This requires doing 1 wind bomb to get to a building, and another to get to the actual fight. But finally we made it. This was the point when it was time to learn Windblight Ganon skip. This trick allows you to skip the first phase of Ganon. Oh. Except remember when I said I forgot to get that one weapon? Yeah, we're supposed to use it right now. Well, guess we're learning this tomorrow. Goodbye! Day 4 finally came around, and this day was about 2 things. Understanding the Ganon fights and doing my first run. I got neither of those done. Now my Ganon practice started out okay. I learned how to skip the first blight with a setup that lets you shoot an arrow at him while a cutscene is being performed. And yeah, this makes the cutscene amazing. And then we have to watch this out because this is actually the cutscene where he'll get hit by the thing. So you get to see a nice little, you know, he's kind of just like freaking out. He kind of just freaks out a little and then he dies. But anyway, this lets us skip Windblight Ganon and really isn't that difficult to perform. Next we got to Waterblight Ganon. It took me a few tries to understand the fight with him, but after that I think I was okay. Fireblight Ganon was kind of the same thing. He wasn't that bad, but he still took a couple of tries to understand. His fight is also really cool because we have a stun lock set up for his first phase and his second phase is pretty easy as well. But then we get to Thunderblight Ganon. If you mess up on this fight in his second phase once, you die. His electricity attacks go through Breath of the Wild system to prevent one-hit KOs, and getting the setups to kill him are extremely frustrating and difficult to understand without doing it a few times. Then, if you die to him, you can't just go right back to him and try the practice again. Breath of the Wild does not let you save during the boss fight, which means every time we want to practice Thunderblight Ganon, we have to fight the other Ganons before him. So I did this again and again and again and again, and after 3 hours of just fighting these bosses, I gave up. My brain was just not working after fighting these bosses so many times over and over, so I thought it would be best to take a break and practice offline a bit later. And that ends day 4 because then I played Jackbox games with my roommates for the rest of the night. Now when day 5 finally started, I got to practicing offline. I spent another 2.5 hours fighting the Ganons and getting more comfortable, and I'm happy to say it only took me about 1 to finally figure out the Thunderblight Ganon fight, and then it was time to deal with Calamity. Now in the tutorial I was using, it explains that Calamity Ganon is random. He has a ton of different moves that he can use at any time, so you just have to be ready for them and try not to get hit because many of them can one-hit KO you. However, I learned quickly that this fight is not as bad as it seems. You can run away from all the attacks you're not comfortable with, and for most of the fight you stay back shooting arrows. As long as you're moving and have a good grasp on the fight, it really isn't that hard. Then he enters his second phase where you have to deflect the laser with your shield and then stun lock him. Now the stun lock is fairly difficult because you have to remain patient. You must spin your two-handed weapon, wait until he slams the spear on the ground, wait another half a second, and slam your weapon down. Then you need to wait until your stamina is about at 75% before doing it again, or you will run out of stamina and get destroyed. I just needed to remain focused and patient.
Oh god, why?
Now Beast Ganon is basically an auto-scroller. You ride the horse, you shoot the spots, and you finish the run. So I just had to focus on getting to this part, I didn't have to worry about practicing it. So after showing my stream that I could do this and explaining what I learned, it was finally time to do my first run on day 5. This game is hard. Now my first run went okay to start out with. I made a few interesting mistakes, but that's only to be expected from a first run. At the very least, I remembered the run without fail and was able to get to Calamity Ganon in 42 minutes. I also forgot to split, but I do that a lot this run. So I died to Thunderblight Ganon, but that's okay. Sub 1 hour was still possible. And then I failed the Blight skip. But third try, I made it to Calamity. I made quick work of his first phase and had him in the stun lock. Oh god, how did you let that drop? Okay, but he barely had any health left. Surely this was going to be an easy win, right? Yeah, we died 2 more times, but then we finally killed him and we were good to go. When we finally finished, my first run turned out to be a 1 hour, 27 minute, and 28 second time. Now, not exactly the sub 1 hour I was going for, but it still wasn't that bad. Now, on day 5, I had time for 1 more run, which... yeah, I thought I had time to complete it, but then this happened. However, I learned that you can grab these extra truffles and make a meal that gives you 5 extra hearts, so that's pretty useful. And that ended off day 5. Not what I was hoping for, but at least we completed a run. Now, I had 2 more days to improve my time before the challenge was over, and I was determined to get a good time. Day 6 started and this was a day to do runs. We finally got to the point where I could do them and I needed to start grinding so I could get a run that I was satisfied with. At this point I was really sad that I couldn't use more time to practice the Great Plateau, but I needed to improve the whole run, not just part of it. I actually had a really good run going for the first one of the day. It was looking like it could take less than an hour. Then I choked hard. It felt like my controller wasn't working correctly, but who knows, that might just be John's. Even so, sub 1 hour must still be possible, right? Well, almost. Still, a 30-minute improvement and I was showing no signs of stopping. Sadly though, that's when I stopped. I had a heartbreaking run right after that, so much that I decided to stop running for the day and try again tomorrow. Yeah, day 6 was pretty short. And here we were on day 7, finally. After 6 days, this was our last chance. I was determined to not give up on these runs until I got a time I was satisfied with. Now my first run of day 7 started out pretty bad. I just kept losing time over and over, but I was okay with it because of my mountain of time save in late game. I had someone in chat who may or may not have wanted me to reset with every one of those mistakes, but I believed in myself enough to bring it back. I made more mistakes and lost more time, but at the very least I knew it would be a good warm up. I could also still PB if I just didn't die to Ganon, so that was the goal. And then I got the trick. Easy. I beat Water Blight. Easy. I beat Fire Blight. Easy. I beat Thunder Blight. Easy, and say it with me, I beat Calamity Ganon and it was so easy. Finally, I finished out with my first sub 1 hour time and I proved why you shouldn't just give up. My next run had a better early game, but then of course we died to Ganon. It was really tough, but I didn't have any more time to practice the fights and tricks I was messing up. I just needed to play and improve my runs that way. The run right after that was doing so well, but then I got greedy and died. I was kind of going insane at this point because I knew I was capable of getting a sub 50 time, I just needed everything to align. And this one was just such a heartbreaker. Next, someone in my chat who's been helping me, hit him, challenged me to a race. I accepted since I thought it would be fun. But then this happened. Please? I should have waited more. Because everybody loves that goddamn show so much. Why don't we just go back to it? We can all laugh at me, have a great time. I cry, you know, you guys love that. I decided not to let it faze me though and kept going. I got an insane amount of confidence in myself and was ready. Well, with that confidence carried over to my next run. I told my chat that this would be the last run of the night, and then this happened. And that ends my 1 week Breath of the Wild any percent speedrunning challenge. So I started out failing tricks left and right but ended up being 96th place. Now overall this challenge was insane because of everything I needed to learn within a small amount of time, but it was also very fun. I recommend running Breath of the Wild any percent if you love tricks, movements, and difficult fights. It has all 3 of those and more. You may have to have the determination to get through some very tough spots, but it's so worth it when you get some great runs. Now my next challenge is speedrunning Super Mario Bros. Any percent for 1 week, so we'll see what happens.